Well, the president's speech was heavy on the economy and energy as we continue to grapple with crippling power cuts. But was it merely a rehash of promises of past projects and announcements? And what about Ramaphosa's pledge to keep the special grants coming? Is that a band-aid over a much bigger problem? The Institute for Justice and Reconciliation's Mikhail Moosa listened closely to the speech, and he joins us live now from Cape Town. Mikhail, thanks so much for joining us. The president spoke about a social compact, a new social compact in 100 days. He extended the 350 Rand grant, but didn't confirm a basic income grant.
Yes, that's right, Annika. I think the extension of the social relief of distress grant really is allowing the government a little bit more time to determine whether it can actually afford a basic income grant. In a sense, it's kicking the can down the road in terms of securing a very sustainable and institutionalized form of social protection for many people. However, of course, we do have to celebrate this because it does provide very valuable assistance to the most vulnerable people in our society. And South Africa has a very wide social safety net, but we know that they have many holes in this safety net, and that has been unemployed people for a long time. So it's great that we are able to afford this social assistance to those people, but I think we really need to have a very broad national discussion about whether a basic income grant is something we can afford, what are the advantages of it, and how it will impact society in different ways. And I think we also need to have a conversation about how we fund this as well. Even if we have to be creative about taxation, for example, or cutting spending in other areas, we know that social assistance and social grants are very effective at reducing poverty. So this is something that really could be valuable. But unfortunately, we probably won't be having the conversation within the next 12 months. But the government can't keep affording to indefinitely renewing it annually.
Mikhail, I mean, with the commodity boom, can South Africa not be more creative in using fiscal space to stimulate economic growth?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a space for those considerations to take place. If you look at some of the major corporations in South Africa have returned very high levels of taxation over the last year or two. As you rightly point out, the commodity boom has been very good for mining companies. The JSE is hitting all-time highs. So there definitely is an economic renewal going on. It's just how that we redirect those funds or the success at the higher end of the economy to people at the grassroots as well. So I think there is scope for us to be a little bit more inventive and innovative about how we deal with these sorts of issues. We can't keep relying on very, very small amounts of money for social grants, especially if they're not linked to very high levels of inflation. So I think there is scope for us to begin discussions about perhaps what a wealth tax would look like, whether there needs to be changes to personal income tax, for example, and with the understanding that this is for the greater good of providing social assistance to the most vulnerable in society, and that this isn't just a direct cost on the government, but that it stimulates the economy by providing people with purchasing power. This money goes into communities as well. So we have to look at the multiplier effect of these programs as well.
One of the criticisms about the basic income grant, and it's a divisive issue, is that job creation is far more important rather than a handout, if you like the dole in the UK. Do you think it's a balancing act?
I definitely think both of those things can be true at the same time. I think what we have to also realize is that unemployment is a structural issue in South Africa. So, of course, we've seen record levels of unemployment in the last year or two, particularly because of COVID. But if we look over the last 10, 15 years, unemployment has been increasing very steadily over that time. And there hasn't really been a point in South Africa's history where unemployment has been at levels that are comparable to other countries in Europe, for example. So we have to realize that unemployment is a structural issue. The labor market simply cannot absorb enough people to function as a welfare state in other countries. So we have to develop policies to mitigate that and also to enable job creation, which is what grants can do. And the president spoke about that last night. Of course, most people would prefer jobs. They would be preferred to work. We know from our Afrobarometer survey, for example, that many people would prefer to work than to receive a grant. So this isn't an issue of people not wanting to work, for example. It's just that the opportunities are so slim. But what we need to do is provide people with a very, very minimal amount to just overcome the costs of looking for a job, which can be quite substantial. If you think of transport costs, going to interviews, very, very small amounts that are preventing people from applying for jobs in the first place.